everyone. I'm glad to see this size of group because I feel like we can talk better and answer questions and stuff. So I'm happy to be here today. Before we begin, I want you to know the truth about me. I am not a homeschooling expert. I have not written any books or created my own curriculum. I am lucky if I update my blog once a month. I don't have any more patience than any other mom, and I struggle with being organized and consistent, which is why I was at Nicolene's class this morning. So, but what I am is a regular old mom of 7 kids, and I'm on my 14th year of homeschooling, and I love it. This is my family. My oldest daughter here on the end, she just turned 19. And I started homeschooling her when she turned 5, and she graduated last year from our homeschool. She got accepted into the University of Nebraska and went there for a semester, and she's going to go to BYU, Idaho this next fall. So I was like, yay! I think I was more excited than her when she got the acceptance letter to college. I also have, I'm going to go down the line, a 3rd grader, 8th grade, 5, so I have a whole another child still to go through, which I'm excited about. 1st grade, 10th grade, 5th grade, and my husband, like Tiffany told you, we've been married 20 years now. They sure keep me busy and keep me going, keep life full. So I'm excited to share with you guys some things that I've learned on my homeschooling journey. And more importantly, I hope to share with you guys that your journey is going to be uniquely yours. Nobody else has a family like yours, so nobody else's journey is going to be like yours. In my early years when I first started homeschooling, I was looking for the right curriculum and the best way to homeschool. And I don't think that's a bad thing because we all want the best for our kids. But over the years, just having experience and seeing so many other families being successful at and doing it in so many different ways, that I have a new theory, and that is there is no one right way to do this. But it took me a while to learn that. Now what I look for is what is right and what is best for my family, not necessarily what is right and best, period. And that's, I think, a lot less stressful way to look at things, too. So I never planned on homeschooling. I didn't really even know about it, heard about it, I guess. And then when my young married years, when I had 2 little toddlers, I would just saw like a TV segment on homeschooling here and read an article there and thought, oh, that's cool. But I didn't really, make any changes in my mind at that point. Then when I had a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, I was expecting my 3rd. I was in the doctor's office and was flipping through a magazine and saw another article on homeschooling and told about how this family did it, and this time something clicked. And I thought, I want to know more about this. So this is pre-Google, so there were no fancy search engines back then. We did have the internet, but there were no fancy search engines. So I had to go to the local library and look up to see if they had any homeschooling books there, and they had one. They had one homeschool book at the library, and it was called The Ultimate Guide to Homeschooling by Deborah Bell. And I thought, well, if you're only going to have one book on homeschooling, you might as well have the ultimate guide to homeschooling. And, maybe they thought, hey, we don't need any more books on homeschooling. We have the ultimate guide here, so we're good. I don't know. But anyways, I started reading that book, and the more I read it, the more I thought, I think I can do this. And then I read more, and I thought, I can totally do this. I was so excited. And by the time I finished that book, I was just so full of energy and happiness and excitement about this whole homeschooling idea. And I knew that feeling was the Lord telling me that this was right for my family. And that was huge for me. So if I was going to do this thing, I wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing. So my oldest was 3 at that time, so my next 2 years I read everything that I could get my hands on, which yes meant I had to go to more libraries to look at more books. No Google back then, but I read everything I could get my hands on and kept learning. I also did not know anyone who homeschooled. And as the time approached, my daughter was turning 5. I was talking to someone at church, and they knew someone who homeschooled. That person had happened to move out of state the month before, but that was all I had. So she gave me her phone number. I called her. You don't know me, but I'm a homeschooler. And she gave me another number, and so I called all these people I didn't know, and finally got tied into a support group in my area, which was wonderful for me for my first few years. As excited as I was, and as sure as I was that this was right for me, I still didn't know how I was going to do it. And that's what we'll talk about here in a minute. But also, besides not knowing how, I also once in a while would feel this weight on my shoulders, like, oh, this is my children's whole education. Like, that's a heavy weight. And I just felt this huge responsibility. If I did anything wrong or made a mistake, or if I wasn't good enough, or if I forgot, what if I forgot to teach them something? If I just felt like if their whole life got messed up, that it could possibly be my fault, And that's a scary thing for a mom who just wants the best for her kids. But I was inspired with this scripture, which is now one of my favorite scriptures. It's Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. And I'm pretty sure that when the Lord says all things, that he means homeschooling too. And this didn't mean the Lord was going to reveal to me a whole kindergarten through 12th grade plan right there and then. But it did mean that he would strengthen me and help me if I would step out in faith and do my part and trust that he would let me know what I needed to know when I need to know it. So it took that stepping out in faith. Another scripture, which I think is awesome for homeschoolers, is Ether 12:27. And it says, if men come unto me, I will show unto them their weakness. I give unto men weakness that they may be humble. And my grace is sufficient for all men that humble themselves before me. For if they humble themselves before me and have faith in me, then will I make weak things become strong unto them. And I actually like to read this another way. And if mothers choose to homeschool, I will show unto them their weakness. I give unto homeschoolers weakness that they may be humble. And my grace is sufficient for all homeschoolers who humble themselves before me. For if they humble themselves before me and have faith in me, then will I make weak things become strong unto them, and their children will turn out just fine. So as a homeschooler, I think it, especially when you have that, your whole children's future on your mind, it's very easy to get discouraged, and it's tempting to think we're not good enough, we don't have enough patience, we don't have enough knowledge, that why do we don't have any business even doing this thing? Why am I even doing this? But I think the point is not for us to feel like we cannot do it, that we're not good enough to homeschool. I think the point is for us to realize we're not good enough to homeschool alone. And that our Father in heaven wants us to rely on him. Whether we're homeschooling or not, he wants us to rely on him. And when we do, then we're strengthened because he is strong, not because we're strong. But so I really like that scripture. Many years ago, just a mini example, I would sometimes pray in the morning with my kids before school, and sometimes we'd get busy and crazy and we wouldn't. And I discovered after a little while that on the days we started with a prayer, that our day went better. And it's not that the day was perfect, because people still spilled things and fought and had messes, but on the days that we started with a prayer, our day just seemed to go better. So I made sure from then on that we always start our day with a prayer and invite the Lord to be a part of our day. A huge question for a lot of beginning homeschoolers is the how. How do I make a schedule? How do I know what to teach and when? What do I do with multiple children? The questions are endless. And if you are unsure about any of these hows or all of these hows, I just would encourage you to not put that extra pressure on yourself that you have to make a decision right now or know this right now. Think of this as an observing and gathering information time, and pray for guidance and confirmation of all that you do. If you do have your how or some of your hows, then the things we'll talk about today can still help you when changes happen or you think you need to do something different with your homeschool. So I encourage you to go ahead and browse the curriculum, read, research, talk to other homeschoolers, get as much information as you can, and find out what stands out to you. What are you drawn to? What resonates with you? You know, what do you really like? And then when you look at those things, what do those things have in common? And I think that's going to help lead you on the path that's right for your family. And I also encourage you to not worry about everything else. No matter how good other people say something is. Now, there's a lot of wonderful curriculum and great things out there, but no matter how great something is, it's not going to help you if it's sitting on your shelf because it's not right for you. So just take that into consideration. So how do you know what's right for you? And there might be different answers to this, but my answer is that, and this, I don't know, you might not like this answer, but I think if it works for you, then it's right for you. That's what I think. And this is going to take some trial and error because it's a process, it's a journey. But I'll give you some things to think about that can hopefully help you on your path to discovering your journey. Now, I don't have time to get too detailed, but I'm just going to kind of give a general overview of some things. If you have questions, feel free to write them down. I don't know if we may have time for questions at the end, or you can find me anytime after. There's tons of homeschoolers here. And I have never met a homeschooler who did not want to answer a question or help someone. So there's lots of people to ask, and I'm happy to help you as well. So I'm going to call this my things to be aware of but not freak out about list. Okay, so my number one, I think, is to define your why. Like, why do you want to homeschool? Do you want to enable your child to learn at their own pace? To go as fast or slow as is right for them? Or maybe you want to have a schedule that works better for your family. Whether your spouse has a certain shift at work and maybe they never get to see the kids because they have a later shift. Or maybe they travel a lot. An awesome thing about homeschooling is that you can make your schedule work for your family instead of trying to make your family work around somebody else's schedule. Maybe you want the freedom to learn by going out into the world, not being in a building all day, but actually going out and interacting with the world around you. My friend in the back row told me once, I don't homeschool so my kids can stay home. And I love that. You told me that. Remember that? Yes. Yeah, and I thought, well, we go so many places that I'm trying to stay home. But maybe that's something that maybe that's a why for you. Maybe your why is to better incorporate your spiritual beliefs in your homeschool. And for me, that was a big one. It has become a big one for me. Yes, I want my kids to be well educated, and yes, I want them to be well mannered. But for me, their spiritual education ranks a little bit higher than that. Okay, a lot higher than that. It's not always popular to say that because education is important. But if you get perfect grades on your ACT and all this and get a doctorate, but you don't have your testimony of the gospel, to me, that, I'd rather have it the other way around. I'd rather have them drop out of school but have a great testimony. Not popular to say, but anyways, this is how my perspective has changed over the years. It is important to get educated. The spiritual education is more important to me. I recently heard a mom in a homeschool conference say she wanted to teach her kids to get into heaven, not Harvard. Thought that was pretty good. So now my kids are going to get a huge dose of the world's teaching no matter what I do, and I know that. I've homeschooled my kids most of their lives, and they are going to get a huge dose of the world's teachings no matter what you do. So I'm going to try my best to surround them with gospel teachings. And I love when all my children, when they do their 3rd grade English book, they're diagramming sentences like Noah built the ark and God created animals. I'm like, I just think that's so great to have that gospel belief through their whole life, everything they do. And I love that when we study history, that the birth and life of Christ are right there on the timeline with the Romans and Greeks. There's not a separation. I love that. So whatever your why is, keep it in mind as you look at curriculum and your schedule. Also, you're going to need to remember your why on those hard days, which will come. Like if you're working with one of your kids upstairs and then you find the toddlers in the basement dumping out your food storage. Or maybe your fifth grader has just run to her room crying and slammed the door for the third time because she doesn't want to do her math. I'm not saying this has ever happened to me. Well, more than one time probably. Maybe you are seeing the dishes and laundry start to pile up. Or maybe your friends are all going to lunch and posting pictures of their cute Pinterest projects that they finished while their kids were in school. See, you're gonna need to have your why, okay? Because those things are gonna happen. You gotta have a big why. And no, for me, my why is way, bigger than those things, although those things are like, oh, they bullet me. Okay, another thing to be aware of is state laws and requirements. We don't want anyone having trouble with the law. That makes it no fun to homeschool. This is a map here. Shows every state it's legal to homeschool, but every state has their own laws. So the green states require no notice. Nebraska is one of the yellow ones, so low regulation, there's moderate and high regulation. So in Nebraska, they just require you to submit paperwork every year. I won't go into detail on this, I'm happy to answer questions later. But you are not asking permission to homeschool in Nebraska. You are just submitting papers to let them know that you are choosing to be exempt from the schooling laws. In Nebraska, it's really easy to look up the paperwork if you just search the Department of Education, Nebraska Department of Education homeschool, or Rule 12 and Rule 13. If you can get all the paperwork online, they have a list of frequently asked questions. And like I said, feel free to ask for help if you need it. But all the information's there online. One difference is there's Rule 12 and Rule 13. Rule 13 is the religious exemption. The only difference is for the religious exemption is you do not have to submit immunizations. That's the only difference. Otherwise, so once a year you submit this paperwork here in Nebraska. So again, when you comply with the law, then that's going to be a factor in how you plan your homeschool. Next thing to be aware of is curriculum. This, you could probably spend the whole 2 days of conference talking about curriculum. There's almost as many curriculum combinations and philosophies as there are homeschool families. So it's a blessing and a curse. It's hard and can be overwhelming, but yet it's such a blessing to be able to choose what works for your family and have so many choices. Some people like to choose a certain philosophy or style for their homeschool. Traditional, like they do in school with textbooks and such, or classical, or some eclectic, which is just a mix of a lot of different styles. There's unschooling, which is totally unstructured. There's just a ton of philosophies, and as you look into those, like I said, see what resonates with you and what you really relate to. Like when I began, I was drawn to classical. I liked that idea of the classical literature and the logic and the Latin, and there were good things about that, but over time I've changed to more of an eclectic, using great things from lots of different methods. And I've also been experimenting with an approach called by the skin of my teeth method. So we've been trying that lately. The other day, I asked one of my friends what style of homeschooling she used, and she's like, what do you mean? And I said, like classical or unschooling. And she said, I have no idea what those are. I thought that was great. So she just talked to friends and used their recommendations for books, and that works for her. And that's what I love about homeschooling. You can do what works for you. If a philosophy resonates with you, that's going to help you choose a curriculum and a style for your homeschooling. That's great, but it doesn't have to be that way. Another thing to think about is teaching styles and learning styles. Again, we're not freaking out about this, right? We're just being aware. I found this out just by doing it. For example, I got these great little science books, science experiments for children. You just use household things, items, and do these science experiments. And I thought, that's great, that sounds doable, I should have all the stuff. And I never opened the book. So, not that it's not a good book, it's a good book. But what I figured out was I was so busy doing all the other things with my kids, their English and spelling and history and all this stuff, that I just could not get myself to go gather all these supplies and get them out and get it all together. I just am not big on things that I have to do a lot of prep work for because I have so much to do. So for me, that's something that I learned about my teaching style is I need to look for things that have a lot of the prep work done for me, like maybe a kit that already includes the items I need, or a book where all I have to do is photocopy and hand my kid a page. These are the things that are going to work for me. So for you, you'll find that out as you try things, or maybe you already know kind of about yourself, your strengths and weaknesses. For example, if there's a certain subject you just are like, I am not teaching this, I don't know this, I'm not comfortable with this, then you're going to look for a curriculum that gives you more help and instruction. Like I have an English book for my kids that has actually a script that tells the teacher exactly what to say to their kid. And not that I always use it, but it's there for those who need it. So there are those options for you. Let's see. By the way, I did volunteer to teach a science experiment class at the co-op. That's how we got our science experiments in. So we didn't just skip it. So what I'm saying is you can find a way to do what you need to for your kids. You know, I knew if I'm teaching a class at the co-op, I'm gonna get this stuff together. You know, so you just find a way to do things that works for you. Child's learning style, there's books about children's learning styles. If you're interested in that kind of thing, I think a lot of us know our children's strengths and weaknesses. You know if your kid cannot sit still like for 5 minutes, that you're probably not gonna get a curriculum where they're sitting at a table all day writing. You know, you know your kids and think about how they're gonna work best. That doesn't mean you can't get that curriculum, but maybe you keep the lessons shorter and take lots of breaks, or you just do it in a creative way. Maybe you do it verbally instead of making them write it. There's just so much flexibility, and you know your child more than anyone, so you're gonna be able to make those choices better than anyone else. Another thing to think about is cost. I could spend so much money on homeschooling stuff, but I can't spend so much money on homeschooling stuff. And you can spend as little or as much as you want. There's the bottom line is that your child can have a quality education no matter how much you spend. Okay, so you can do that. What I have found is that the things you spend more on are probably going to save you more time and be less work for you. And the things that cost less, like maybe using the library, you can do that. It's just going to take more work and effort from you to do that. Some of the more expensive options are going to be the distance learning, online classes, things that you're not teaching yourself. I know BYU and a lot of the universities, University of Nebraska, have independent high school programs. Some people, they like that. They can have their child schooling at home, but through an accredited institution. Some people like that. Of course, there's all-inclusive curriculums where you can buy everything you need all in one box. They say, here's everything you need for 10th grade. Those things. Also, there's lots of community resources to look into. I've always been on a tight budget for our homeschool, so I've always had to be resourceful. And now there's so many more resources available to you. The internet alone has just a ton. I wanted to tell you guys, if you want, I made a list of different online or internet sites. If you want to put your email down after the class, I can email you a list of those, just some websites that I have found over the years, and I asked a couple of my friends too what sites they like. So if you're interested in that, I can send that to you. There's free lesson plans online. There's free college courses online. There's videos, worksheets, there's lectures, there's just a ton of stuff. It's up to you to what degree you want to use that. Public library has been a great resource for me. Unfortunately, I cannot say the public library is free for me because of my lack of organization. I'm always battling with library fines, so not free for me, but it's a good resource. The community is an awesome source too. You can field trips, museums, nature centers, zoos, and I have found that the community welcomes with open arms homeschoolers. You know, especially during the school day when all the other kids are in school, it's an awesome time to go out and about with your kids and visit places. Buying books, there's tons of places to buy books. I don't even want to tell you places because I'm sure I would miss something, but I'll have a few places on my email there. I think the best place is by talking and networking with others, looking online. I like having online sources if you tie in with a support group and people just put up, hey, I'm selling this or I want to buy this, and I like that a lot. A lot of the support groups have a used curriculum sale every year, I usually check Amazon too, their used section, things like that. Also, one thing I think I forgot to say, no, okay. So I think budget is another area where you go out in faith. I think you do your best and do your part and keep your eyes and ears open. And for me, I found that the Lord has provided what I need when I need it. So I think that ties in with faith also. Another thing to be aware of is schedule. So how do you do this? So like I said, the schedule, you can work around your family, your preferences. So a lot of people follow like a normal traditional school day schedule, and that's fine. So as far as the year, like Nebraska requires a certain number of hours. So if you're elementary school, they require 1,032 hours, high school 1,080 hours. And you can decide how you want to spread that through the year. Some people will do just Monday through Thursday, or 4 days a week, and they'll have 1 day for field trips and appointments and errands, things like that. Some people will do 3 weeks and 1 off, or some people will follow the traditional school. It's really cool. I just love that we can make our schedule how we want. 1 year, I used to kind of follow the traditional school time period, and 1 year I was having a baby. I can't remember, it was January or March. I was having a baby in the winter, and I decided we're gonna take the whole month off after I have the baby. And so we did. So then, because we took the whole month off when I had a baby, then our school then went into the summertime. We ended up doing our schooling until like in July. We took August off, started again in September. And I loved it. And I will tell you why I loved it, because every year prior to then, the first 2 weeks of school were always the hardest because we were transitioning. It took me a while. Every year I'd be like, why is it so hard? Oh yeah, it's the first 2 weeks of school. We always have to transition back into our routine. And this 1 year that we went to July and took August off and went back in September, it was so much easier to get back into our routine. So I have just kept that year round from now on. It's just really works for our family. A daily schedule is another thing to think about. Some people are going to schedule to the minute, and some people aren't going to schedule at all. This is something, I kind of did something like this when my kids were younger, where I needed to divide up my time. So I decided I had to figure out what can the kids do independently and what do they need my help with. And also, what can we do together? I'm just saying, if you have multiple kids and you can do history and science together, anything you can do together, I totally recommend doing it together. And it's awesome too, because my little toddlers want to do schoolwork too with everybody else, and they sit in and I give them a worksheet too, and we all do it together. That's been great. So what I would do is then I'd look at my schedule, and when my kids were younger, I would say, okay, well I can work on math with this child, and these kids can do their independent work, and then I can do this with this child, and these kids can be doing this. And I had to figure that all out. But once I figured that all out, we just got into a routine, and it was great. And then we didn't even have to, after we got a routine down, we didn't even really stick with our time. We just had our routine. So whether we started at 8 in the morning or 10 in the morning, the kids still know I do math first, then I do English. Just for me, that really helped me when my kids were all younger. Now, as my kids got older, I kind of moved to this. This is a free printable I found online at donnayoung.org. And I just put Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday on the top, subjects down the side, and filled in what I wanted them to do in each subject each day. And I like that for my older kids because I want to give them more control to choose if they want to work ahead. I just want them to get a little more ownership of their school schedule. If they want to work ahead, they can finish their whole week early if they want to, or so I like that for them having a little more control over their schedule. But there's, like I said, tons of information online, and talk to other people because there's many, many ways you can do this. Another question that sometimes come up is with the required hours for homeschooling. When you homeschool your kids, you're going to see that it doesn't take as long to teach them a lesson as it would in school. And so you might get done with like teaching your first grader in like an hour or less, and you'd be like, oh, okay, how am I going to do a 6-hour day? We just finished our work. But don't forget that going to the library, art projects, science projects, creative play, recess, nature walks, projects that reinforce lessons you're already working on. Don't forget to include all those things that are a part of your child's education. And that's what's so great, is that you can kind of watch your child's time. They're using their time wisely. They're not having to sit at a desk and wait for the teacher. They can always be doing something. Couple things I like for my schedule is we always start with what I call family time in the morning. We have our scriptures, our prayer. This is a good time if we will memorize scriptures sometimes, or when they were younger, we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I have done read aloud books with them in the morning. This is our time our family starts the day. This is like the kickoff of our homeschool day. And another thing I really like in our schedule is something called quiet time. And I got this idea from the book called The Well-Trained Mind by Susan Weisbauer. And she would have her kids, this is what I started doing, like after lunch, can be whenever you want, but after lunch my kids need to go to their room or a designated spot in the house and do something quiet, a quiet activity by themselves. They can read a book, they can, my daughter crochets, or they can play with Legos, they can listen to an audiobook. They just cannot have TV or video games. This is a good time for them to just be able to do something quietly alone, which I think is good for them, and it's also sanity time for mom to have a little breaks when your kids are home all day. So I really like quiet time. Let's see, another thing that is flexibility. Now I'm almost too flexible, but I do think there is a great place for organization and consistency, definitely. But there's also a place for flexibility. So if something isn't working for you, I think it's okay to not be stuck in having to do every single problem and every single page in the book, to make sure that it's working for you and not making everyone miserable. So flexibility is a good thing. Also, perspective. Remember the why. We got to remember our why. If you're having a hard day or week or month, it's not because this is wrong, it's because you're normal. Okay? We all have our hard days, weeks, and months. One mom said, if she can teach her kid to read and to think, then they could learn anything. So, just remember that. We were trying to teach our kids to learn how to learn, and just get a bigger perspective. Another thing is support groups. Super important, especially when you're starting out. Most of the time you don't get to see that other people are going through the same things you are, and that everything's okay and it's gonna be okay. So just when I was young, starting out, I needed to see the other moms who had kids who had graduated and gone on to college. I needed to see other moms who understood what I was doing and why, and who didn't think I was crazy, and who were encouraging me. I needed that. It's super important. And now it's awesome because there's so many support groups online, you don't even have to leave your home anymore to get that support and connection with other homeschoolers. There's tons of support groups just for field trips, support groups for special needs. I'm on a couple of Facebook support groups, which are awesome. Somebody posted a couple weeks ago, they posted, hey, I set up some field trip times at fire station, just post here if you want to go. And I brought my kids to the fire station. All I had to do was put in my information on Facebook and we got a field trip, so that was awesome. There are local support groups, awesome to tie into. They do science, at least in my area, and I'm sure every area we do science fairs, spelling bees, geography bees. They had a homeschool formal a couple weeks ago, skate nights, sports teams. There's so many things available now, which is awesome. There's the state organizations. There's a Latter-day Saint Home Educators and HSLDA, Homeschool Legal Defense Association. I love them. I think they are a great organization. If you become a member with them, if anything legal issue were to come up, they would represent your interests. But more than that, they watch the law process on a federal and state level, and they really look out for the interests of homeschool parents, and not just homeschool parents, but parental rights in general, which I really like about them. Their website, hslda.org, is full of wonderful articles and resources for homeschoolers. 2 years ago, I was able to attend a regional conference here in Omaha, and I was so excited to find out that one of their speakers was Deborah Bell, the lady who wrote The Ultimate Guide to Homeschooling, which I read when I first was deciding to homeschool. I was so excited to go and hear her, and I had to go say hi and tell her, oh my gosh, I read your book when my daughter was 3, and now she's gonna graduate high school. It was really cool. And I found out that she, after her kids finished homeschooling, she went back to school and got a PhD in educational psychology. And she studied how, why, and when homeschooling works for her PhD. And she gave 8 reasons why 8 ways kids learn best. Number 1, kids learn best when they believe their teacher and fellow students care about them. And if you want these, I'll give them to you later. Don't worry about them. Kids learn best when they have opportunities to pursue their interests. Kids learn best when they can make choices and decisions about their learning. Kids learn best when they can observe other students who model what success looks like. Kids learn best when they have a teacher who's available to provide feedback and encouragement. Kids learn best when the work they are asked to do is matched to what they are ready to learn. Kids learn best when they can experience what they are studying firsthand. And kids learn best when they have plenty of physical activity, sunshine, and fresh air. And she said what she learned can be summed up in one sentence. If we build a school from the ground up based on what the research shows is how kids learn best, we build a home. And I just want to end with this quote, another quote that I came across in my first year of homeschooling. And I love this quote, and this is the next quote I love. When we started homeschooling, I felt as though I had tucked a child under each arm and jumped off a cliff. Imagine my surprise to discover we have wings. And I just want to wish you all the best as you discover your wings. Thank you. If there's any questions? Yes.
You were talking about the amount of time spent homeschooling. I live in Iowa, so there's not a stipulation on that. I'm curious, it's like we just started this year, my daughter's second grade, because in homeschool they're never really one grade.
Yes, yes.
And really every day she's done in an hour and a half. And no matter how much I plan, and we don't have a curriculum this year because we were just starting. I mean, I was using a lot of supplemental books and just making sure she was getting every subject. But
yeah.
Is that typical?
Yes.
And
what grade is she in?
She's first.
First grade.
So
yes.
I'm thinking too that she can't sit longer than that.
Yeah.
Really, in reality, and she's ready to go play when she's done.
And don't you think? I think creative play and that sunshine and fresh air is so great for them. Yes, I agree. Yes, that is typical.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, that's where you do the creative play and the going to the library and all the other fun stuff that makes them so awesome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Anybody else? Questions? Any comments from experience homeschooling? Yes.
So how do you account for the hours? Do you just sign off on the papers that I taught for?
You can, so in Nebraska, they don't say, hey, show me proof that you did these hours. They don't do that. So I do free printables and I just keep track for myself. So if anything ever were to happen, I would have a record, but nobody has ever knocked on my door and asked me to prove it. But yeah, for my I think it's good for your records just to have your own. And also when you do your paperwork, make sure you keep copies for yourself. And when you mail your paperwork in, I think it's good to mail it certified. Just to have a paper record. We haven't really had a whole ton of issues in Nebraska at all, but we want to make sure.
They don't check up on them.
Yeah.
I just divide the hours by 9.
Yeah.
And they don't.
So they've been really, good.
There's no
Yep.
accountability that way.
Yes.
I was going to say, this is my second year, and the first year when my son was in kindergarten, I was writing out like every 15 minutes, like, okay, we did 45 minutes, and it was so stressful. It was just so stressful, and I finally just dropped it, and instead just kept a list of everything that we were doing every day, and I check a box.
Yes.
So it's like, this is what we did. Here's his school binder with everything that we did in it.
Yeah.
And and then I just divided the hours, like she said, and I'm like, okay, I know we're not going to do as much in December. I know we're not going to do as much here, and it's worked.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Did you have?
I do. I'm high school and teenagers, and so I just wondered if anyone had like you say to find things that the kids are interested in, and how much leniency do you give, and has anyone had any high schoolers?
That's a good question. That's a good question with the leniency. For me, I look at what do they want to do after high school. If there's a certain couple colleges they're looking at, then I look at those colleges' requirements. Okay, if you're looking at going here, this is what we need to do. And so I want to make sure they get those core subjects in, and then after those core subjects, then then comes the leniency. What else do you want to do for fun? You know, but those core things. So I kind of look at what's your goals after college, and let's work to get you there. That's kind of
And then how many hours should we be, you know?
for high school.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be 1,080, but
It depends on the
let me
kid.
shut this off. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I do the lessons. I look at they need to learn algebra 2. Then this is how many lessons you need to do for algebra 2. I don't go okay. You need 60 minutes or whatever. I just make sure they're getting their lessons done and learning what they need to learn. Anyone else?
I
You have
just have no TV, no video at the time for a certain set amount of hours, and if they're productive during those hours, then they're.
Yeah, there you go.
Whether it's, like one day my daughter wanted to make a cake from scratch, and so
That's awesome.
she just wanted, and it's like, does that count? You know?
Yes.
That's science, that's.
Yes.
Math.
Yes, chemistry. Yeah, it is. And you know, we get that. It's totally is.
I was
It's
going to
awesome.
say too, for the paperwork for Nebraska, you also have to write down your curriculum that you're using. And you can change it, like, you don't have to tell the state. Like, halfway through the year, if it's not working,
Yeah,
dump it and pick something else. Don't
Yes.
stick with something that is not working.
because that's what you wrote down.
Yes,
Yes.
right, and they're not gonna
Yes.
check up on you.
Just not like when the kids go to school and if they have 3 snow days or 1 snow day more than they're supposed to, they'll tack it on at the end of the year. You know,
Right.
because that's what they do at school, but
Yeah.
for homeschool, it's just, okay, we're gonna do the work and that's it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Thanks. Yes. Yeah. That's something you learn as an experienced homeschooler.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
I may have missed this in the beginning, but we kind of did more of like just like a preschool things. My son was barely at the age this last fall to even start kindergarten, so he won't technically be in kindergarten this year. And people ask me that, like, don't you have to file? Don't you have to say that, to tell the state something? I'm like, I don't know, and I'm not worried because technically he's
Yeah.
not in
Not
kindergarten
until
yet.
they're 6.
So I'm not worried. So he won't turn 6 till October. So that's why I was like, don't stress me out. I have
Yeah.
a year. Like,
Yeah.
don't bug me.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
now I'm coming up on it, but we're moving to Utah. Was there
Okay.
a place to look online?
Go to.
Where?
I recommend going to HSLDA.
That's where it's all
That's
at.
where I got
And they
that
have
app. You
all the
click on
state requirements.
Utah,
and
you
all
just
of
have to
that.
file with your school district that you're
Yeah.
going
To
to
switch school
homeschool.
districts.
That's all, and that's, you don't need to give them curriculum.
Well, and has
hours.
anybody like moved? So, because like my husband's about to graduate from law school, so we're gonna be at his parents for the summer till he passes the bar, and then we'll be in Nevada. So we're gonna kind of be like, so what do you have to file with Nevada again, like
Yeah,
for that
when
district too?
you-
Like once you move, everywhere you move, you just file.
Yeah.
And how do you go online and do it, or do you ask the school district
Depends
for
on the
paperwork?
state.
Like,
It depends on the state.
but that website should be the resource to give you everything you need. Okay.
And don't bother before the mandatory, because I was homeschooling in Kansas and theirs compulsory education started at age 7. So, you know, it's like, don't bother with it until it's mandatory. You know, it's just more paperwork for yourself,
So
so.
see if you type in if it's for sure 6 in Utah. If it's not 6, then don't bother.
Right. I would.
Right.
And like say, if you're just gonna be in Nevada over the summer or something,
Yeah, we'll just be
nobody's
in
in
Nevada.
school over the summer, I wouldn't bother with there.
Yeah, we might only be in Nevada or Utah for like September, October until we move again. So that's why I'm like, do I really file for 2 months?
Depending on that state's laws.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have
I feel like they're
My
pretty
son
fine.
is 17 and he's in US right now. He's gonna graduate next year.
Yeah, I'm not pulling it.
But I am gonna pull my daughter who's 9 and homeschool her, but she wants to do show choir like he does.
Oh, gotcha.
Do the schools allow them to do that?
Yes, yes. I have found schools to be very open to working with homeschoolers. Yes, so I think probably when she's in junior high, talk to the high school and say, this is what we're gonna be doing. You can I've seen people put their kids in for 1 class, 2 classes, whatever they want to do. Really good about it. Yeah, yes.
What's the name of the book in the author that you said you read? This is when your daughter was 3.
The Ultimate Guide to Homeschooling by Deborah Bell. And if you guys put your email on that list, I'll send you all that. Yeah. Deborah Bell. Yeah, where's that?
It's
Yeah, we
coming.
didn't get it, no, we didn't get the
Oh, you
sign up
didn't?
sheet.
It's right here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. And catch me any other time, today or tomorrow, or any of these other experienced homeschool ladies who know more than me. Okay, thank you so much.